In this video, I will share with you my last resort method for switching your sleeping schedule to the sleeping schedule that you want. And this is something I don't recommend that you do unless you've tried all my other techniques in all the other videos I've made on fixing this. I highly recommend you search all of those up on my YouTube channel first before you try this technique. But this is a technique that I have used as a last resort that has worked really well for me, and I have went from going to sleep very, very late in the morning to waking up at that same time in the morning and having no side effects from it, being perfectly healthy and feel filled with energy. And it doesn't require any drugs, nothing ridiculous, but it does require some sustained effort. So I really decided to make this video because I realized that there's so many people who have the same issue. It's because we have artificial lighting now, and nighttime feels like daytime, and we can stay up as late as we want and it won't feel any different. And on top of internet, video games, television shows, all sorts of stuff, we end up going to sleep later and later. And I found this thing to be very prevalent among so many people, especially guys. Guys definitely seem to have this for some reason. And the problem with it is that they will, and I've seen girls have this too, and what ends up happening is they end up staying really, really late every day and waking up really late for a lot of different reasons. Maybe they're off from school, it's winter break, or they're in college and they have that freedom, or they have a job during the night, or they just have that freedom for whatever reason, and they end up abusing it and staying up later and later, and they end up being screwed. Now I know how much that this sucks. At first it may seem cool because I used to have a curfew, but it really started sucking and hurting because I ended up missing out on stuff. I ended up not being able to attend stuff because I couldn't wake up in time. I ended up going out anywhere, and if I were to go to public places, it would be completely empty because everyone's asleep and the whole place is deserted. And even when I tried fixing it, I couldn't because I was too lazy, and I knew nothing bad would happen if I ended up staying up really late. So here's what I did. I was at a point once again for the millionth time where I had the freedom to do such a thing. And I ended up waking up, and I found myself in a horrible position where I was waking up sometimes as late as, where I was going to sleep sometimes as late as 4 or 5 a.m. and waking up at 4 or 5 p.m. It felt horrible. People didn't. I felt unproductive. I felt sluggish. When I mentioned it to people, it just didn't feel good. And a lot of things I just couldn't get done because, businesses, post offices, all these things are only open during the daytime. And let's be frank, most of the world is active only at this time. So you can't go to, so any activities you want to go to, if you want to go to a yoga session, if you want to play tennis with people, if you want to do business with people, if you want to have a business meeting, whatever else, you just can't have it. In addition to that, you didn't even get to see, in addition to that, you don't get to experience sunlight, and that just sucks. So here's the strategy. First things first, I had to set something of deep importance that I had to attend in the daytime. It couldn't be so important that if I missed it, I would be screwed, but it couldn't be so unimportant that but it couldn't be super unimportant because then my body would just be lazy and skip it and oversleep, which happens a lot. I think what worked best for me was finding something that was semi-important and also something that was exciting and fun. What what ended up So what I chose to do was I went to a fair where there's a lot of different businesses and where there's a lot of different businesses in attendance that I could learn stuff from. So this was important professionally and I didn't want to miss it. Also, it was exciting to a decent extent that I didn't want to miss it and it could have been interesting. So then so here I was, I woke up at maybe 4 or 5 p.m. and then I pretty much stayed up the entire night and the entire day as long as I could. Now you have to do it exactly like this because otherwise what ends up happening is if it's so unimportant, I will just, not be able to control myself and fall asleep and then I fall asleep at maybe 6 or 7 a.m. and nothing will really have changed. And so when I hit the 5 a.m., 4 a.m. mark where I usually fell asleep, I kept going. And at first it wasn't that bad. But towards 7, 8, and 9 a.m., it got pretty tough. But this is when I went to the event. I prepared, I dressed up, I went to the event, and that adrenaline and all of that stuff where I wanted to do well, I wanted to present myself well, and so forth, as well as experiencing this, it excited me enough so that I kept going. And this really works well because, again, it doesn't require drugs of any kind, like it doesn't require caffeine or something ridiculous like Red Bull or 50 or 4-hour energy or all sorts of ridiculous stuff like that, which could work. But again, I think that's just not doing your system well. So the fair went for 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. And after I got back from the fair, I was still alive and well because the entire time while I was there, I felt alive and energized and excited. And it pretty much felt like those moments when I was a kid and I was staying up later and later. And it felt harder and harder, but I was so excited because I got to stay up later than I ever had. And I was able to. And it was pretty much the exact same feeling because it's the exact same thing, just with day and night switched. And so that was the buzz I was feeling. But I had a actual viable reason to stay awake. After that, I held it for as long as I could. I probably could have held it longer with my willpower, but I just let myself go because I already knew I had already put in a decent chunk and I already knew that, but I just let it go because I realized I had already put in a decent chunk and pushed my sleeping schedule a good 6 to 12 hours ahead of where it used to be, which was progress. So I went to sleep at maybe around 1 or 2 p.m. And then I ended up waking